everyone. Hello, and welcome to Getting Carried Away with Norry and Caig, the show where we invite authors to talk to us about the books, films, music, games, and TV shows that they love, the things that truly make them get carried away.
Hello, thank you so much for watching. We are really excited this evening to be joined for the final episode of our second series of Getting Carried Away. That's come round quickly. We're really excited to be joined by Lorraine Brown, author of the brilliant romance novel, The Paris Connection. Hello, Lorraine.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Hiya.
Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Is it The Paris Connection or is it Uncoupling? Is it got two titles, your book?
Yes, the title changed. So the hardback is Uncoupling, the paperback is The Paris Connection. Yeah, don't ask. It's a long and complicated story.
Yeah, because I read The Paris Connection and then I was reading on your website and I couldn't work out if they were the same or which way around it was. Yeah.
Less said about
Lorraine. Yeah. Lorraine's picked three absolutely brilliant choices that I can't wait to talk about this evening. So let's start with your book choice. So you've chosen the absolute doorstop, bonk-busting classic novel, Hollywood Wives by Jackie Collins. Brilliant. So tell us, what does Hollywood Wives mean to you? Why do you love it?
Well, I grew up in a very, sorry if anyone's listening, boring suburban town. I found it very uninspiring. But I used to just sit and read in my room. And I guess when I was a teenager, I discovered things like Julie Cooper and Jackie Collins. And I just remember being like blown away. It was just so different from my own life. This was the life I wanted to lead within reason. It just took me away to this whole new world. And it also felt to me like anything was possible. There's something about Jackie Collins' writing, something about that world. A lot of her characters have come from kind of nothing or disadvantaged backgrounds or, and then they've risen through the ranks of Hollywood. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, if they can do it, I can do it. And it really inspired me. And actually, I became an actor for a while, not very successfully. But I think Hollywood Wives was partly responsible for that.
Oh, interesting. So how old were you when you first read it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing maybe 17, 18, something like that.
Okay.
But certainly hadn't experienced anything like the world that these characters exist in. So it was quite shocking, I think.
Was it a book in your household? Like, was someone that you knew had read it, or did you get it from the library, or can you remember like how you came across it?
You know what? I can't remember. Definitely not in the household. My mum and dad weren't really big readers, and I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have read that. So it must have been from the library. I used to go to the library. We had two local libraries in our town. I used to go and get 6 books from one, 6 books from the other. But it was nice because then when you discover an author late-ish, then you have like the whole back catalogues. Of course, I can read all of Jackie's books, but Hollywood Wives is one that sticks out.
And did you do that? Did you plow through Hollywood Wives and then love it, and then just go and read everything that you could get your hands on?
That's it. And I continue to read kind of those doorstop bonkbusters for quite some time. They don't really exist so much anymore, do they? Or rarely. And I used to love them.
Yeah, it was a real sort of 80s. Was it 80s and 90s or more just kind of 80s thing? Those, because my mum used to read loads of them. So we did have all of those books around the house. I don't think I ever read Hollywood Wives. Was it Jackie Collins who wrote Lace, or was that?
That's Shirley Conran.
Yes.
Yeah. But I remember the miniseries.
I read that one at a really young, like inappropriately young age, and all of this sort of.
Go on, are they just full of sex though? Like, aren't they?
Yeah, they are full of sex, and also interestingly, kind of full of sex that's not about love. And I guess when you're like a teenager, and I was used to reading kind of Sweet Valley High type things, where either they wouldn't have sex or they'd have it in a very loving relationship. But Jackie Collins, no, they're doing it to get jobs, to get revenge.
Yeah.
It's never about love, or rarely. So it's an interesting kind of education, I guess. Like, oh, people have sex that aren't in love. Wow, okay.
Yeah. And what about you, Anna, with like Lace? What's the plot of kind of Hollywood Wives, and what was Lace about?
Yeah, tell us about the plot of Hollywood Wives.
Yeah, so the plot is, well, it starts with a murder, which I think a lot of those kind of, bonkbusters do, which is really cool because it creates like tension throughout.
Yeah.
It starts with this guy called Geek murdering his entire family and a young girl called Joey, who we don't know what her relationship is at that point. And then that's kind of threaded throughout the book. And kind of he goes on a murderous rampage heading for LA. So we sort of know that there, all links in somehow. And then kind of around that, there's a film being made by a sort of very powerful woman called Montana. And she is really kind of championing women writers and directors and wants to make this movie. So a lot of it's based around this film that's being made and these up and coming actors, and everyone's desperate to get roles in this film. And so that's the central theme. But yeah, I guess there's, lots of relationship issues within that. And this kind of thriller aspect to it of why is this guy heading for Hollywood and who's he going to kill?
Yeah, I haven't read any Jackie Collins, but I read the first few pages, and because I was expecting something different. I was like, oh my god, it's like a slasher film, like that prologue when he goes at everyone.
Yeah, I know.
And then it's so pacey, isn't it? She's got real, like, I can imagine structurally, there's not like, there doesn't seem to be any fat there at all, like in her writing. Do you know what I mean? It's just like so. Just propels you forward.
Yeah, but it's all right. It's a thick book. Well, I reread it on my Kindle, so I couldn't really tell. You can't really tell with Kindle how big it is, apart from I kept being stuck at like 5%, 10% or so. I'm not going anywhere with this.
Yes.
But then once I got into it, I was like, well, I just couldn't stop. And also, I love that she goes into so many different POVs. Like, there are several lead characters who we find out a lot about, and we kind of dip in and out their heads, which I think is so clever because, I don't know if you guys have ever tried doing that, but I've certainly never tried doing. She's got like maybe 10 to 12 POVs.
Yeah. I read the sample of it on my Kindle, so I didn't have time to read the whole, because it's massive, isn't it? It's like 700 pages.
Yeah.
But I was the same. I don't think I've read it before, and I was like, this is starting with a triple murder. Like, that really blew my mind. That's not something the sort of thing I remember seeing in those types of books before. I did think that was a really cool way to open it.
Yeah, I think so. It adds to that kind of tension, doesn't it? And actually, I used to read a lot of. Have you ever read any Tasmina Perry? She's a kind of more modern writer, and she, in hers there's always a crime as well. There's always a body in the pool, or something like that. So I think maybe that is a kind of trope of the genre, but I love it.
Okay. Do you think it's affected? So one of our guests that we had on earlier in the series, Lindsay Galvin, was saying that she read Hollywood Wives very young as well, didn't she? And she was saying that it's really unhelpful in terms of like the expectations that it sets for you in terms of what you can expect from sex and relationships throughout your life. Have you kind of found it's affected your sort of expectations about what real life romance is going to be like?
Yeah, I think pretty much all the books I've read that are, have a romance element to it because it's just, I don't know, those things don't really happen, or certainly not to me, I don't think. But also the expectation that everyone's beautiful, and that's another thing, isn't it? That everyone in Jackie Collins' world is completely beautiful, and the people that are kind of coming through the ranks, being discovered on the beach or something, always stunningly beautiful. So, whilst you're thinking, yes, that could happen to me, there's also a sort of element of, it probably couldn't, but.
But I love that from the opening, from the reading the opening, where, is it Elaine or Etta or whatever?
Yes, Elaine,
so where she's describing herself as not beautiful, like, and she almost deliberately sought out a plastic surgeon for a husband. Do you know what I mean? So the way she's so transparent about that, because that was, I quite like that. She already seemed quite savvy. Like, do you know what I mean? Just from the opening, it was like, okay, I was always, not this kind of person. And now, several years later and husbands later, I'm now exactly kind of where I want to be.
That's it. And there was some sort of flashbacks later on to her life before. And she basically came from a very kind of working class background. and kind of clawed her way up. So she wants to, she knows, she's savvy, you're right, that she knows if she wants to stay in that world, she's got to look good. And at that time in that world, I suppose that meant surgery. And certainly she did lots of, Jane Fonda.
Yeah. Because when were they written? When was it written? Is it like...
It's 83.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you watch the series? They made quite a successful TV series out of it, didn't they? I never saw that. Did you?
Never saw that. I wish I had.
I'd love to watch that. Yeah, I'm going to be looking at that on eBay straight after.
Yeah,
this.
same. That would have fitted into I used to watch lots of Dynasty in Dallas.
Oh, I loved.
Oh,
Yeah, I loved
so
Dynasty. Good. Dynasty, Crystal and what's her face, Alexis. Those bitch fights were just genius.
Yeah,
it does look very much of that ilk. It's got that kind of look about it.
Yeah. Oh, I'd have to look them up.
Oh,
and what are there 4 books in that series, like the Hollywood Wives series?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because when I was looking up on Amazon and it was listing it, because I was trying to find out like when it was made and see a reader, there were so many, and it said like book 1 of 4 Hollywood series or something, and then it was like Hollywood Wives, the new generation or next generation. So there must have been, or there are billions of kind of spin-offs, or like
I wonder whether she took certain characters, because I know there was a character of her called Lucky, but there wasn't a Lucky in Hollywood Wives. Maybe she comes in later. But yeah, I wonder whether she took characters from that and then gave them their own book. If
she wrote such a massive book with such a sprawling cast, like you said, she got into everyone's heads.
And I think what was great about her, and I read an interview with her actually, was that it felt very authentic, and that she was hanging out at that time with, obviously her sister Joan was a film star, and she was hanging out with like Mick Jagger and Madonna and Marlon Brando. So she was hanging out in that world, and she said that she was a bit of a wallflower. So she'd sort of go to these swanky parties, but she'd hang back and she'd listen to all this gossip going on around her. And I think you can really feel that. It doesn't feel, it feels like it's somebody that knows what they're talking about.
The original own voices. She's like the original 1983 own voices novel. Awesome, just from a different point of view.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I was reading that was when it was first published. That was a lot of the appeal, that very much that people knew that she was part of that world. She mixed in those circles, so they almost, thought it was like a bit of a fly on the wall, like and they were trying to guess who was the real film star inspiration for each character, and that was sort of part of the fun of reading it at the time.
Well, thinking about it now, I wonder whether there was a lead character called Buddy. I wonder if he was like a young Marlon Brando. I imagined him as that type. But it was like a New York Times bestseller for like 4 months, apparently, this book. Imagine being on the list for 4 months, or being on the list at all, but for 4 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you chose Hollywood Wives. And as soon as I saw it, I was just like, oh, brilliant. What a brilliant choice. And it's exactly the sort of choice that we really love when people pick things like that, don't we? When it's something that you wouldn't necessarily expect, that you just love for whatever reason. I think it's brilliant.
Do you think it's affected your writing, Lorraine? Because you write romance?
I do write romance, but I do always really want it to be pacey. So actually, I'm thinking... Having reread this, and I'm writing my 3rd book at the moment, like, I don't know, when I go through to redraft, I want to try and bring some of that energy to it, because I love a pacey book, and I do love psychological thrillers, but I don't think I could write one because I'm not that good at plotting, I don't think. But I'd love that energy of a psychological thriller with a sort of relationship, rom-com. I'm going to think about Jackie and kind of channel her.
Oh,
we'll see how
still alive? Is Jackie Collins still alive?
No, she died not that long ago, 2015, not that long ago. But
okay.
But she's actually Joan's younger sister. I thought it was the other way around. But Joan Collins, I mean, wow, doesn't she look amazing still?
Yeah,
absolutely. What an amazing woman.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on and talk about your second choice, because I'm really interested in chatting about this. It's not something that I really watched a lot of, and I don't know if you did, Emma. I'm not sure how into it you are. So your second choice is the TV series Sex and the City. So tell us kind of what this means to you, when you discovered it, the impact it's had on your life.
Yeah, it just means so much to me. And actually, I just rewatched series 6, and I just, that's the final series. I don't know, I just was smiling the whole way through, and I don't know, I just feel like I know those 4 girls so well. I feel like I've always watched it. I don't know when I started watching it. But I remember being at drama school in 2003, that would have been, and we had to do this kind of slice of life. It was terrible, actually. It was really embarrassing. the whole of drama school was really embarrassing. But you had to do a 20-minute improv of a slice of your life, and everyone had to sit and watch everybody else. It's quite boring, isn't it? And my slice of life was rushing home from drama school into my kind of rented room I was in at the time, and turning on Sex and the City and just being kind of like, yes. I don't think no one really got what I was trying to do with the improv. But anyway, it was that important to me that it felt like, I think that was like the pinnacle of my week, rushing home to watch Sex and the City and being transported again to this slightly glamorous world, well, very glamorous world in some respects, but a world that felt authentic, and the characters felt real, and they were flawed, and they had, problems and struggles like everybody else, but whilst wearing these amazing outfits and going to all these fabulous restaurants and bars, and I just loved it.
Who was your favourite? Who was your favourite of the 4?
My favourite was always Carrie, but having rewatched it, I do still love Carrie, but Samantha just really stood out for me this time because she's just so sassy. And there's a fabulous scene in series 6 where, do you remember her boyfriend? I don't know, you guys might remember, she had a boyfriend called Smith Jerrod, who was like a much
Is that
younger.
the one who was quite a lot younger?
The blonde one, the actor who was really good looking.
Yes, him. Yeah, exactly. And so they start dating. Gorgeous. They start having this kind of affair. Samantha thinks it's just about sex initially, but he persuades her to go and watch him in a play. She's like, oh God, do I have to? So she goes to watch him in this play, and she keeps falling asleep. Like, it's so boring. It's a dry play. Then on comes Smith Jerrod in a kind of pair of denim dungarees. Undoes the dungarees and completely drops his trousers, and he's completely naked on stage. And Samantha's just like, she tells all her friends to come, and then she goes to see it again, and everybody goes along, and everyone's like, you just see their reaction as he drops the dungaree. So fun.
She was always my favourite. She's such a good character, isn't she?
Yeah, so good. So good. And it was, I don't know, it was interesting to see that the whole relationship with Carrie and Mr. Big. I know there's a lot of kind of backlash about that relationship that I've seen kind of on social media and in the media about how, it was a toxic relationship almost. But I don't know. For me, I'm just very much, I love getting behind that idea that there's that one person that you just can't stop thinking about. And, whether or not they're right for you at that time, there's just something about that connection that you have that you can never really get over. And that's, I think, what you have become.
I loved Aidan. Yeah, he made chairs because he made chairs, and he was just like so creative, and he was just and he was just so gorgeous. Like, yeah, I was really, really into Sex and the City I don't know when it first came out, but 20 odd years ago. So before really totally and utterly before any concerns, any media, anything to do with feminism or toxicity or anything. It was just a glorious celebration. Carrie was beautiful and wanted to be a writer, and she did her little writing thing, and there was, it was really strong female friendships, and it influenced how I dressed for about 5 years. Like, I used to like that fashion for the 50s skirts that kind of came out, like really narrow waist and flared out, and then like round dolly shoes. And I was working like High Street Kensington at the time, like temping, and I would totter around like these shit jobs, like going around being a receptionist in all these really scummy places. But in my brain, I was totally channeling Carrie, and I was like, that got me through. That got me through like my early 20s, like in London, like earning a pittance.
You just imagined that you were,
But it kind of, it was just, it was, and it was filmed beautifully, wasn't it? It was that whole thing of like, New York is the extra character. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, one day, it's like, it's lovely. What did you think of the remake? Have you watched any of the remake?
Well, I watched one episode. I guess we can't really say what happened, can we? Can we say what happened at the end? No, we can't.
No. Well, I've watched one episode, and then go on.
Yeah. So
I think we can. I think. I think.
Screw it.
I think everyone knows, don't they? That at the end of the episode of the reboot, well, the episode starts with we see Carrie and Big happy together, married, very happy. And then at the end of the episode, she goes to watch Charlotte's daughter performing a recital or something, isn't it? She's
Yes.
amazing at piano. Comes home and Mr. Big has been on his Peloton machine and has had a heart attack and basically dies. And I was just like, no, I can't watch. And that was it. I thought, I can't
Did you not watch anymore? Did you?
I can't watch it. No, because to me, Carrie and Big were the series.
Yeah.
And now, and also, I'm a bit pathetic about watching sad things at the moment. I don't know. I just don't like watching sad stuff. Just, I guess, since COVID. I mean, it was always kind of there for me, but it's been made worse. So actually, I don't really want to watch the fallout.
So it's
from
not.
that.
It's not a feel good thing anymore. Yeah,
Not
you're
a
not going to
feel-good thing.
voluntarily. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
What did you think of that first episode?
Well, I kind of made the mistake of I did really enjoy it back in the day. I did really enjoy it. It wouldn't be in like my top 20, but you know, it was be in my top 30 shows that I really enjoyed. But I hadn't kept up with it, and I'm really rubbish with just socials and everything. So I didn't know they were remaking it or anything. Like I think I saw the first film, which was pretty crap, to be fair. And I thought it just kind of went off my radar then. Do you know what I mean? I'd see the odd thing on, Google or whatever, like Samantha's not coming back for a film or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I heard about the fact that then there was a reboot on Twitter. Do you know what I mean? Like that was the first place I saw it, with people going nuts, and mainly in the negative, like mainly just going, oh, it's terrible and how could it?
Yeah.
And I thought then, I do need to see it. I need to watch it so that I can still be sure I've got my own opinion and just see what I think. And pluses and minuses. I think they probably should have left it alone. Do you know what I mean? It really was of its time and whatever. But then also, I think they did all right with the energy, and I think they did fine bringing in, lots of different cast members and whatever. But I just think we don't often see older women on screen. So I wasn't like drawn to be like, oh my God, I've got to watch it to see what happens next. But I was interested conceptually in the idea of exploring women in their 50s, 60s. Do you know what I mean? Still being successful, feisty. We're not sexy. It's not all about sexy. It's not all about babyhood. Their kids are kind of growing up, and I thought potentially it could be really interesting. But I haven't watched anymore because, I haven't watched anymore. But I think as an idea, it's a good idea. But then you kind of think, oh, I don't know, maybe they should have left it.
I think they have got a series too. They are doing a second series. It's been commissioned.
Oh, are they?
So, yeah, which surprised me because it seemed I didn't really hear anyone that loved it.
No, it got panned, didn't it? It
got
panned.
Yeah.
Did you just watch the first episode then, Emma?
Yeah, because it's on some TV channel I don't have access to. Do you know what I mean? And I wasn't going to certainly like buy a whole new Now subscription or whatever.
No.
But I wouldn't mind seeing it. I've got a mate with a Now subscription, so I think you can have like a few, you know what I mean, like legally it's all legal, you can get like people's login, can't you? So I just need to
are live on the internet.
Please do not swear. I just need to make sure she's like, I think she's like ditched her latest fella that she gave his login to, so there might be a spare one going. Because you only get like 6 or something, so yeah. But I might watch it because I kind of feel like I'd like to see how things pan out. But there was some odd plastic surgery going on, which was odd because it kind of was just I don't know, it was strange to watch.
Yeah, it wasn't. Some odd character choices from Miranda, I thought. Was it Miranda that she went to some sort of university lecture and was really un-PC and like thrown by the fact that the course leader was a black woman? Also, there was something really strange about.
Was that in the first episode? Yeah, she's studying. She goes back to study law, doesn't she?
She goes back to study law and sort of makes some sort of inappropriate comment in a group scenario. And I was thinking, Miranda wouldn't do that.
No, that's not Miranda. That's much more like Charlotte's behaviour. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very strange.
The way that I haven't watched it, but I think the way that they kind of explained Samantha's absence, they got quite a lot of a backlash for that, didn't they? Because they basically suggested that Samantha got in a big huff because Carrie didn't want her to be her publicist anymore, and that was just really inconsistent with, it's really petty, and Samantha isn't that type of a character at all.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, it wasn't the same without Samantha. And having rewatched season 6, there's such a big storyline for her. And this is something else I love about this series. They kind of look at quite serious issues, but with a sort of light touch. So I don't know if you remember that Samantha had breast cancer in the final season, for example, and I just think it was done so well. And there was a miscarriage storyline. There was, a kind of, relationship breakups, motherhood, single motherhood, all sorts of quite serious issues that they they kind of cover, don't they? But it suits me to have a light touch. So
Yeah,
I get that, you know, I want to see real life represented on screen. I don't necessarily want to come away from something feeling utterly depressed. So, you know, that works for me.
yeah. No, they did do that really well. They explored some. It was really groundbreaking when it was out. It's easy for people to panic now, you know, 20 years after it was, but yeah, it was doing something really, really unique.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, I love Darren Star's, you know, he's like the executive producer, writer, and all of his shows, thinking back, like he wrote stuff like Beverly Hills 90210, which I love.
Okay.
Have you guys seen Younger? That's another one of his shows. Oh, I think you'd love that. That's probably is on something like Now, or and it's about a woman who has, I think she has kids. Yeah, she has kids and then wants to get back into the sort of magazine world. Okay. But she keeps getting turned down for jobs because she's in her 40s, and they're like, "Oh, you're too old." So she pretends to be younger and goes for this job. She pretends she's in her 20s, and this is the kind of beginning of this whole journey for her, whereby she's got to stay pretending she's in her 20s, and does that work. And but again, it's sort of set in this glamorous world, but with these flawed characters. Great.
So I'll check that out. That sounds great.
Really
like
fun,
when you can, and that pitch line is just brilliant, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Because you instantly can see it. Like you can already see ahead. Like
yeah.
No, that's
we all need to get on Emma's Mates Now TV subscription.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Let us know.
Oh, brilliant. Well, let's talk about your final choice, because I know this is another one that we've all got loads to say about. Absolutely brilliant choice. So your final choice this evening is the film. I always get mixed up. So the first one is Before Sunrise. Is that right? Yeah. So, what a film. Tell us what this means to you, why you love Before Sunrise.
What a film. Well, I loved it when it first came out, I'm guessing. I would have been quite young, or soon after it first came out when I first watched it. But when I was thinking about writing a novel, because initially my inspiration was my brother, who had been on this train journey with his girlfriend across Eastern Europe, and she got up to move seats because they both were obsessed with sleep. She got up to move seats because she couldn't sleep in that carriage. And then when they woke up, the train had divided in the night. And my brother told me this story about 15 years ago. I wasn't even a writer. He wasn't even thinking about being a writer. And I remember thinking,
I wondered if that was real.
Yeah.
So they got separated?
They got separated.
Oh.
I know, but they found each other and they're still together. It's fine, good. But when I went to sort of revisited this idea for the Paris connection, I was thinking, that sounds very Before Sunrise. That idea of what happens if, so I was thinking, first of all, what happens if the train divides? And then what happens if you meet someone in that space of time that you have before you're reunited with your boyfriend, where you meet someone and you just have this amazing connection with this backdrop of this beautiful city that you're spending the day in. So again, a bit like Sex and the City, I think Vienna was very much a character almost in that film, wasn't it? Because it just was just such a perfect backdrop. I just love it. And again, I feel like Jesse and Celine should be in my life. Should be real and in my life.
Their chemistry. I watched it day before yesterday. Can't remember, just kind of in preparation for this. Their chemistry is just incredible, isn't it? What an amazing choice of, the pairing of those two actors. It just works so well.
Yeah, it really does. And I think you need that for rom-coms, don't you? I've sort of read that when you're making a rom-com film or a TV series, it's really pivotal that you have this chemistry between the leads. Otherwise, it just absolutely flops. It doesn't work. But, they really got that right. And interesting
you can really feel it.
Yeah, I can really feel it. But yeah, I love the idea of just taking a risk on someone, like he just says to her, why don't you get off the train and let's spend the day together in Vienna? And if you hate it, you can get back on the train and go to Paris, but let's just see. And she's like, pretty quickly says, okay.
Yeah.
Which I greatly admire and wish would have happened to me at some point in my life.
Yeah, it made me feel really nostalgic watching it again, I have to say. It was really, kind of those adventures you have when you're in your late teens, early 20s, when, the world is your oyster and you can just randomly get off a train and see what happens. It just captures that sense of possibility, doesn't it? That, every day something new and exciting and interesting might happen to you. And that just is a really seductive idea, I think, when you're a 40-something married lady with children.
And that energy they've got where they stay up all night.
I know.
Like they stay up all night talking. You know what I mean? And it's like they've got that ability to like no one's asleep by 10:30.
I know. I was almost slightly, when I rewatched it, I was cringing slightly at the sort of incidental characters that we bump into in Vienna along the way. There was a guy that wrote poetry. Do you remember he was like in a boat or something?
Yeah.
Like,
I loved him though. I loved him.
Oh, me too.
The smoker with the like, and it's like
Yes.
you can't see me. But Anna yesterday texted me, "Bring me the head of Wilmington cow," and I was like, "Are you on something, love?" Like, and she's like, "No, it's from before sunrise," and I was like, "I'm not watching it until tonight." But she randomly, so yeah, and then as soon as I saw those two guys, I was like laughing my head off again because I was.
They never go and see the play, do
but
they?
that's what's brilliant, isn't it? That's what's brilliant. That's why it works like real life, because we're expecting. He's such a great director, Linklater, and we're expecting them at some point to, maybe go and see the play, or we.
Yes,
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? We're kind of expecting there to be
Oh,
a
yeah,
connection or something,
definitely.
and there's not. And I just, it's brilliant. It's I made my kids watch it with me yesterday.
Oh, what did they think?
And we all watched it together, and and they really, really loved it. So my daughter loved it, but she's 13, right? And she loved it. And my son then was like, had to bury his head every time there was a kiss, and then got all like, but they both really, really enjoyed it, and I wasn't sure. I mean, I knew it wasn't, it is a really favorite film, but I haven't seen it for at least 15 years. And it kind of generated a bit of discussion, which was great. But what I found really funny on a rewatch was how much I disliked Ethan Hawke when I really loved him and fancied him so much 20 odd years ago. Not how much I disliked him, just how you can see his ideas and his pretensions as being very defensive and very much of a young boy in their 20s. Does that make sense? Whereas when I first saw the film and fell in love with it, I was like, oh my God, I need to move to America and find you and marry you, Ethan. You're so cynical and wise. But then last night, I was like, oh God, Julie, you're wise. You're the one I'd run off to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, completely. Although, have you seen all three films? Have you seen?
Yeah.
I hadn't really seen Before Midnight, the third one in the trilogy, and my perception completely flipped. I was all about Ethan because I was just Celine had become, I don't know, difficult and kind of, I don't know, aggy.
She's got a handful.
She's a handful.
Yeah.
You're thinking, oh my God, I've got this gorgeous writer husband, and she was like, trying to sabotage it.
Yeah. No, I need to watch the other two again. I haven't seen them since saw them when they came out.
I've never
watched. Before Sunset was really interesting, the second one, because that is only 1 hour and 16 or something, and it goes so quickly, and it leaves you at a point where you're like, no.
Yeah. No, it's a proper. Oh my God, and that thing is, the song's beautiful.
That's so.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful.
The ending, her dancing in the apartment and telling him that he's not going to make his train. It's a really striking ending. Yeah.
Really is.
Oh, good. You've seen it. I didn't want to spoil that.
Yeah. No, I've seen that one. I've not seen the last one. I've not seen the. So is that when they've been married a while? The last one.
Yeah.
So there's 9 years between each one.
But they're not married, but they've got beautiful twin girls, and they're obviously together. It's
basically one long bloody argument, isn't it? Really, the
whole
film is like one. Well, it's set in a single. You know what I mean? Like, it's
a single evening, isn't it? Or a single, very 24 hours. Or something. I think what lacked for me, because I'm really very much a city person, as you maybe gathered from the fact of kind of my book and TV choice, but like I love the fact that Paris was a backdrop for the second film and Vienna for the first, and then I think they were in Greece or somewhere, weren't they? It was beautiful, of course, but it didn't have that same energy about it. I felt. I can see what you mean. I
wonder if that was more reflective of their age. Do you know what I mean? Like they're kind of like a bit more of that kind of holiday rather than and reflecting their relationship to an extent as well. That it's kind of a bit more sedate and not as
slower and
not as kind of exciting, not as passionate. Well, sort of just I don't know. Like. Yeah. So
would you recommend the last one?
Yeah.
You sound so unsure.
I'm not. No, it's because when Before Sunrise came out, it was a bit like. So I had a massive thing for Ethan Hawke, right? So
We can
Dev
tell.
Poets aside. Oh, sorry, I'm a bit transparent. When we were watching it last night, my son was like, "Oh my god, did you fancy Ethan Hawke?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he went, "Oh, you've got such a type. Dad looks a bit like an older, shaggier Ethan Hawke." Son telling me that I've got a type was not really what I wanted to hear. Do you know what I mean? I was like, "Oh, have I not progressed in like however many years?" But I watched Before Sunrise like 20 times or something when it came out. So yeah, so I don't, and I've only seen the other two once, Anna. Do you know what I mean? So
Okay.
yes, I would definitely recommend seeing it because it does complete it does feel like a piece to be seen. But I did have quite a few issues with it, I think.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. And I guess what the first two had, which I love, and again, I tried to kind of recreate a little bit in the Paris Connection, was like that ticking clock element to the story. So,
yeah,
obviously they've only got a certain amount of time together, and in that time they've got to work out whether or not they're going to take it further, or be together or not be together. I always think that is a way of kind of adding a bit of pace and tension. Well, it certainly I felt like that for the first two films. I don't know whether you guys felt the same.
Yeah, it's much more kind of thrust forward, isn't it? Did you not like the last one then?
Well, I liked seeing them together. I liked seeing that they were still together. That's about it.
And how have your feelings changed for the characters since you've watched it, and you as well, Anna? Like, if you've seen it, do you know what I mean? Like, I felt really differently about them, like with a 20-year, 15-year age gap watching it. What about you guys?
Yeah, I still think that. Yeah, a bit like you channeling Carrie. I think I would like to. Maybe at some point I try to channel Celine, just that kind of enigmatic French girl. Kind of a bit messed up and a bit kind of cool. Yeah, I just kind of really wanted to be her, and yeah, I also would like to have been with somebody like him, I think, at that time.
Yeah. So
it's interesting to see what they're like now and thinking, well, would I don't feel like that when I saw them as an older couple, I suppose. I've lost that sense of, I don't know. Yeah,
I think I just felt nostalgia for that time watching it, and kind of that time as it was depicted in the film, but also time in my life when I first watched it and was maybe a similar age or just young enough to find that really, younger than them. So I found it really aspirational. Yeah. And it just really kind of brought all of those feelings about wanting to go and have these amazing adventures back. It was really lovely, actually. It was really lovely rewatching it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I still do believe in the idea of that, that's that initial kind of connection that you have with someone and how powerful that can be. And I think that's just such an exciting thing to explore.
Yeah.
I love seeing it played out on screen or in a book, when you get like a meet cute in a rom-com or something.
Oh God, I love seeing that on screen. I love seeing that on screen. And that moment when they're in the record shop and that's that really small booth and they're looking and not looking and trying not to look. Oh, it's just like I
do love playing that game of when do they fall in love, and in like romantic comedy films, so like when does he fall in love with her, when does she fall in love with him, and is it the same moment? And I do feel like that section in the listening booth, I don't know, that seems to be the moment where it happens, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I love that scene in the park because you don't know whether or not they've slept together, do you?
I wondered that.
Is it the second film or third film they reveal? I think it's the second film when they're in Paris and he says, oh, blah, 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 something about sleeping together. And she's like, no, we didn't. And they have this kind of, I don't know, disagreement about it. But then they agree that, yes, they did. I was like, oh, they did. I don't think I thought that. It's like, oh, I hadn't thought that in my mind.
But which brings us really nicely onto talking about your books, Lorraine, because I've just read The Paris Connection. I can absolutely see kind of the inspiration that Before Sunset brought to that book. It was just, and I can see, you talking about how inspired you are by cities, because so it's obviously set in Paris, and I just love Paris so much. And I would really recommend the book, but I would really recommend it to people who are planning a holiday to Paris. I just found myself bookmarking things I wanted to go and do. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think, that was something I always wanted to do, like bring in the idea of the city as a character. And actually, the last 2 episodes of Sex and the City ever was set mostly in Paris. I don't know if you remember that, but she goes there with Mikhail Baryshnikov's character, Alexander.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she doesn't get on with Paris at all because she misses New York so much. But I don't know, Paris to me has always felt just magical. And so when I was thinking of a setting for the book, I was thinking I want it to be somewhere where they can have all these, have this amazing connection and these discussions and be walking around against this beautiful backdrop of, these gorgeous buildings and parks and places to eat and canals that you get in Paris. So, yeah, it was kind of an easy choice of setting.
I loved that at the beginning she really didn't like Paris as well. I loved that you gave her that backstory where she's really like, oh God, I've got to go to Paris, how rubbish. But then she kind of has this amazing kind of the time period that she's there, this amazing day. And yeah, I just thought that was really well done.
Yeah, because I think Paris, I don't know about, Paris feels like this kind of place where anything could happen, doesn't it? And the times that I've been, it's never really entirely gone to plan, or it's never panned out the way I thought it would. It's never been that kind of dreamlike romantic, experience that you might imagine. Something always goes a little bit wrong, or I don't know. But I think that I think that adds to, certainly when you're creating a story.
Yeah. Tell us what you've got. Tell us what you've got coming up next. Then, have you got another book coming out in September? Is that right?
Yes, I have. It's called Sorry I Missed You, and this one is set in London because basically, I did already kind of have the story, but then I had to write it during lockdown, and I found it really hard to imagine myself anywhere rather than London, which is where I live. And I had wanted to write a novel set in London, so I chose to set it in Hampstead, which is an area that I used to be obsessed with when I was younger. But then I worked there for a few years recently, and kind of the sheen came off. Let's just say, but I still think it's very beautiful, and I don't know, just again, pretty quaint, cozy setting for this romance, which is about 2 people that live opposite each other in an apartment block, and they think they've got nothing in common. Until they start bumping into each other on the stairwell, and then they realise that actually first impressions aren't always right. Opposites sometimes do attract.
Oh, it sounds great. And you said you're writing your 3rd at the moment.
Yes, I'm writing my 3rd, which is set in another city, in Florence.
Oh,
wow.
So that was great. I got to do a research trip. That was my first trip abroad in ages. So I went in March on a research trip to Florence. Oh my God.
Oh, how was that?
Oh, actually, yeah. I think, added to the fact that I've not been anywhere for 2 years, as most of us haven't. But yeah, it was just perfect. Perfect weather, amazing food, so clean. We went on a wine tasting tour because that was part of my characters do that. That was fun. Yeah, it was just perfect. So perfect. I missed my flight home.
Oh no.
Yeah. That wasn't so great. Spending the night in a Best Western Milan airport.
Nice. Ending it just beautifully.
Yeah.
I'm making a note to set my next book in some really beautiful exotic city.
I was just thinking the same. I'm like, oh my God, I need to change up what I write. So I just need to do I'm going to do a revisit of Lord of the Flies set on a Hawaiian island with teenagers. I need to go to.
Yeah, you have to go.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, well, thank you so much, Lorraine. That's been brilliant. That's been 3 really, really interesting choices.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. It's really fun to talk about them all and kind of reminisce.
Yeah, I could have. That was. I want to read Hollywood Wives now, or at least see the miniseries.
Yeah, I'm going to.
And I'm going to go and watch the last of the 3 films, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll let you
know.
I'll let you know. I will do. So thank you to everyone who's watched this 2nd series. We are going to be back for a 3rd series, but we'll let you know when we've got a date for coming back. But in the meantime, take really good care, and we will see you again soon. Okay, bye.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.